Hello and welcome to the IWF podcast with me, Ryan, Ryan Shade, Ryan Iconic Shaz, or whatever you want to call me. And today we've got a special guest. If you want to introduce yourself.
Yes. Let me introduce myself. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, my name is Drake Xavier. And my name's Lazy, and I'm here to do an interview today here with Ryan. How you doing, Ryan?
Very, very warm, to say the
Very
least. I'm
warm.
good though.
Yeah, I know the feeling. It is hot here too.
Yeah, way more than I anticipated, but we're good. We're good for the most part. Like anyway.
Uh, so I'm gonna let you start this off. Ask me any questions you want. I'm open to anything.
So, as you know, I'm from the UK. How are things for you over there in America?
Oh my God. Ask me a real question here. Okay. Fine. Over here, it's hot right now. I live in the Northeast, and we are experiencing a heat wave like none other, and it is very, 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 very hot right now. And I'm supposed to go hiking, which is not going to be great on my extremely pale complexion, and I'm going to probably burn up and die. So this is the last, kind of like my last will and testament, the last time you're going to ever hear my voice. So yeah, that's how we're doing up here in the good old U.S.
So, to anyone who doesn't know, a lot of the IWF channel, well, not a lot, but the core of it is sort of like an eFed. But what is an eFed to you?
Okay, so eFed is typically, in my opinion, an online wrestling federation, or an eFed can be for any type of sports gaming or competitive gaming. That you basically create your own character, you play this character, and and yeah, that's that would be what I would consider an eFed, and it doesn't have to necessarily be wrestling. You can do an eFed for football. You can do an eFed for soccer, eFed for NBA, because there's all these different types of sports games out there that you can take and create characters with. I just think eFed is a lot more popular, or wrestling eFed is more popular because of the fact that you have a lot more creative ability, and the characters themselves have a larger than life feel when it comes to wrestling.
Yeah, because obviously, even though I've been in the ones I've been in for as long as I have, there's still sometimes the differences in knowledge on what people see as an eFed. So it's good to know, especially people that come onto the podcast that have been in an eFed, the difference in opinions and how they look at it. Because obviously, there's going to be people that have been in it longer or less than I have that might have a different view of it. But I would say that is the general overview of what an eFed is.
Yeah, I mean it's very hard to put your finger on one single definition because it's a very open definition. eFed is just eFed. It's Entertainment Federation is what I believe it stands for, and or Electronic Federation. One of those two.
Yeah.
Can't remember off the top of my head, but it's basically like an online conglomeration of a bunch of different people for a singular sport or type of competition.
So this is one that I think I've mentioned to you before in passing, and what we just spoke about just before we started. So I think we'll start off after this one with this. What is the core values and what are your thoughts on promos in general when it comes to eFedding and general wrestling?
So a promo is the best way that you can express your character. Not only in the whole wrestling world and stuff like that, but as a person. There's a lot of people who tend to have a promo that is cut in character, where you change your cadence, you change who you are, you try to play up who you want to be. But then there's a lot of people who also can take their character and shift it towards something that's more human. And I think a lot of people take promos as to being, hey, I'm going to play a character right now, rather than being, hey, I'm going to be a person right now. Because promo work is very important to establishing who your character is and what your character wants to do. And whenever you do cut a promo, those are two of the most important things you want to focus on. Otherwise, you just are rambling on about nothing. There is no point to the promo. There is no point to the conversation, interview, however you get your voice out there. It's very important to keep the key ideas of what your character is going for and why your character is voicing what he's voicing.
I would say when it comes to the aspect of promos, rambling is all well and good as a baseline, but not to put anything that's not information, important information that is, into the actual promo finalized, because like you say, it'll just come up as just not really readable and not really useful to the people that are then, especially when it comes to wrestling eFed, it won't become very useful.
Yeah, it's you want to make sure that whatever you're doing, be it a promo, even RPing, that it's furthering a purpose and story. Obviously, you can do RP for something that's random, that's not even doesn't matter in universe, but typically, whatever you put out there, you want it to have purpose, whether it's even just showing a small little piece of who your character is. I think a lot of people go into promos and they're just like, I'm going to cut a promo so I can sound cool, and I'm going to make sure that everyone hears my voice. And a lot of the times that people do that, they'll get halfway through the promo and be kind of like, yeah, that's about it. I have nothing else to say. And it kind of kills the promo right there. You want to make sure that whatever you're saying, you have a beginning and an end to, and you don't over elaborate anything.
I would say this is sort of connected to that in quite a few ways, but we had a question from the character, the person who runs the character, Isaac, that you might have seen in passing when you looked it up, pop up. But they said, what is the keys to a good roleplay?
So there are two things that I think need to go into every roleplay that you do. One, it needs to further the story of your character. And obviously an RP doesn't need to be completed in just one session. Obviously there's storylines that go around certain RP arcs, like Drake. Drake got injured. Jesse attacked him. So Drake was off show for a little bit. When Drake came back, the first RP I did was, hey, Essie, we need to talk about what's going on. I didn't RP anything in the hospital because in my head, the only thing I thought about what Drake would be doing in the hospital is being in the hospital, being a patient. And that's not going to further the character. That's not going to change anything in the story. So RPing something like that tends to, what's the best way? Put filler in where it's not needed.
Yeah, I think sometimes that could be quite useful, especially for people that haven't really interacted much before, or if it's to entice somebody that's involved in your role-playing / story to interact more with, say, yourself. But I like the fact that you said it doesn't always have to be needed, because it is a good point. Like, just because you were part of it, or just because it's been happening before, doesn't mean it needs to reoccur. Like, say, I don't know, Ryan Shade's been in the hospital. Doesn't mean everybody that's friends with him or otherwise needs to go and see him.
Yes, exactly. like when Drake went to the hospital and everything like that, I got a bunch of DMs. I got DMs from you, Anthony, all that stuff regarding going to visit Drake, and I was like, I'm holding off. I'm not answering anything until I figure out what I'm gonna do from the hospital bed. And eventually, I was like, you know what? There is no RP that I can further from the hospital bed besides, oh yeah, I got injured. Jesse hurt me. Go do whatever you're going to do about it, because you don't need that. You don't need Drake to say, yeah, Jesse hurt me, you should go fight him now. It's not a necessity to further the RP that's going on. And I think that people, when something like that happens, like say Drake getting attacked, or Drake when Drake was involved in the Jesse Anthony title bout, people want to get involved with the person who's in the middle, the person who is either having an effective role in that RP or match itself, such as me as Drake being the special guest referee, or say when Jesse attacks Drake, it's everyone wants to jump in on where they think they can get some RP from. But there's a lot of times where jumping in isn't what you need to do. What you need to do is analyze the situation and choose a target, because Drake doesn't need the help, but what Jesse did was wrong, right? So instead of focusing on Drake's injury, focus on Jesse doing what he did. People should be confronting Jesse. People should be like, hey, that wasn't right. He was coming down to shake your hand. And even with even if you don't side with Drake himself, you side with what Jesse did, you can be like, hey, Jesse, yo, you did a good job out there. Congrats, man. I've been wanting to do that for weeks. You see, that furthers the story a lot more than just being like, oh, Drake, I saw you got injured. Yeah, what do you want me to do? And I'm just like, I'm in a hospital bed. What do you like? I don't know what I want you to do. You're gonna get more RP out of actively participating with the person who put Drake in the hospital, or who lost the championship, or who won the championship, because at this point, for what Drake has become, Drake is meant to be a background character who helps further storylines through the back end stuff. If you find yourself at like a point where you're like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do from here, that's when you want to go to Drake, because that's when you can go and talk to him. Drake can be like, okay, I see you got no direction. Why don't you go this way? Or Drake will be like, hey, well, I got direction for you. Next week, you're going to be facing this guy. But you shouldn't be going to him. You should be going to people like, who's a good example, who doesn't have anything. Jacob Havoc. He's in the Pocket Aces tournament right now, but there's no active challengers people who are like, hey, Jacob, I'm calling you out. I want to fight you. Or something like that. Draco hit one of the refs last week. Somebody could be like, hey, that wasn't right. I want to beat the shit out of you now, and let's do a match. Like, it's RP like that where people should jump on and build off of. And I think a lot of people just look for the main storyline that's going on and want to hook their teeth into that. Rather than creating their own stuff.
I think an issue that a lot of people have is they don't know or don't want to be the person to initiate the story beginning, if that makes sense. They would rather latch on to something already existing. It's almost like a grey area. No one wants to be the person that starts it, but everybody wants to jump on something existing.
Well, one of the big things that I used to do when I first started SCW was I went to certain people. My first storyline was with Jensen. And what I did was I reached out to Jensen and I was like, hey, you got this OJ gimmick going on. What if I came in and started being your friend again and eventually reveal that the entire time I actually hated your whole OJ gimmick and really wanted Jensen to be Jensen again. And then from there, we can go and create a big story out of it. When I did my story with Eric, I was like, Eric, let's talk. Let's see what we can make out of this story that we've got going on. Eric was one of Drake's best friends at the time. Eric got really close with Drake, and then Drake betrayed the hell out of him. And all these stories only work because you gotta reach out and talk to these people. And you should work with as many people as you possibly can. When as the time that I've been here, I've worked with almost every single person on this roster, barring a bunch of newer people.
Yeah.
When you isolate your options to only people who are in the bigger picture of everything, you tend to lose out on some of the better stories that you can create.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's like when I've come to yourself, or I think it might have been Essie before, where looking for advice. But then during that conversation, I ended up somewhat answering my own question. But then you were like, okay, but how do you want to define this? How do you want to portray it? Like, how's it going to come across? I think it was a conversation we had maybe just the other day. But I was like, what I'll do, I'll see what the idea is, put it forward to you, and then we can see if it works.
Exactly. And that's a lot of it comes from pre-planning. I don't just randomly start an RP against someone. What I'll do is I'll go into that person's DMs and I'll be like, hey, I want to work a story with you. Here's my ideas for it. What do you think? And from there, we can develop a long-standing story, because I think some of the best stories are the ones that you're just like, hey, me and you, let's work on something. One of the great stories going on right now in the background is Jensen and Anthony, where Jensen's acting as a mentor to Anthony, but Jensen's intentions aren't necessarily the most earnest. He's acting as if Anthony's his best friend, but in all reality, Jensen's pretty bitter at the position that Anthony's been in, because that's where Jensen once was.
Yeah.
And it's one of the better storylines going on right now, because it's two people who are actively working with each other to create something bigger than just, hey, I want to fight you, or hey, you're involved in the title picture, so I'm going to go after you, or something like that. In all honesty, a lot of that stuff tends to get rewarded more often than not. If it comes down to a case of, let's say, you have two people who deserve a high stakes title shot, and one person is RPing and telling a story, while the other person is kind of just like, oh yeah, I've won all these matches. At the end of the day, you know who, as a booker, do you know who I'm going to pick? I'm going to pick the person who's furthering the story and character of that title shot. Because look, you could win every single match at the end of the day, but it doesn't mean anything if there's no substance behind it.
I was literally just thinking the exact same word as you said it. I was like, substance matters, and you could win every match, and at the end of the day, like literally mirroring what you just said, like it won't matter, because if you've done nothing with that, then you might as well have just done nothing at all.
Yes, exactly. And I think a lot of people tend to see their wins as the be all end all, rather than seeing the character that they put forward having a huge effect and huge role on how they get booked.
Yeah.
obviously, I try to be very fair in my booking. I'll hold number one contender contests because that will give people who do win the opportunity for those title shots. But if there is a person who has a very good story going on, but they're like teetering on the edge of a loss record over a win record, I'm probably going to go with that person because they're creating something more than just a match.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly, because you want there to be more in the world of what that eFed is, regardless of what the eFed is. You want there to be more.
Exactly. At the end of the day, I've told SE and Blaze this a million times. I'm a company man. What comes first in my mind is furthering the company and doing everything that I can to make sure that at the end of the day, SCW is as good as it can be, at least while I'm booking it.
So I think you might have answered most of this anyway, but we might be able to refine it. Bennett asked the question, what's your favourite part about storytelling in eFeds overall?
It's really hard. That's a really hard question because there's a lot of aspects of the story that I like. I think the most important thing to me when it comes to story, and one of my favorite parts, is being able to bounce off another person.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of times that some stories can go only one-sided, where one person is putting in all the other effort and the other person's just coasting with whatever they got. A lot of the best stories are when you can collaborate with someone else. When me and Blaze worked on the whole MC Top Shelf Eric storyline, that was some of the, and when Eric included during this, was some of the best collaboration that I've ever done while in CAW. And beyond that, I mean, there's a whole storyline long past that called, that was when I came into a different company, and me and Blaze told probably one of the best stories that have ever been told in eFed. I wish I could talk about it more. I try not to bring up certain past companies.
Yeah.
But
I mean, that is fair enough.
Yeah, the collaboration is my favorite part of any story that you make.
So obviously this is up in the air because it's still a relatively fresh thing, but what is your opinion on what IWF is so far? And in your opinion anyway, it doesn't actually have to happen, it's just how you're feeling right now. Do you think there could be some kind of further collaboration with SCW down the line? I know I've seen some hints in commentary a little bit, playfully, but I just wondered what your opinion on it was.
So, regarding my opinion on it, is I would love to do it at some point. At me as a character in Drake, I tend to stay with continuity. So the fact that Drake is going to be joining IWF, even if under a different name or disguise, it's all going to be under the same continuity. The stuff that happens in SCW is going to affect him in IWF, and in IWF, things that happen there will affect him in SCW. That's just how I, as a
creative mindset.
Thank you, creative mind work. And I would love to see a collaboration at some point, maybe Forbidden Door type stuff. But at the end of the day, that portion of it is not up to me. This is still SC's channel. This is SCW is SC's baby, and I can bring ideas and concepts to her. I can tell her, hey, I think we should go in this direction. I think we should push this person. I think we should I think we should.
Yeah.
Okay. I was you disappeared for a second. I just want to make sure everything was good.
Yeah, no worries. I think the connection is cut out slightly, but I think, yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I can do suggestions and everything and recommendations, and I do the booking and everything like that. But when it comes to grand like stories like that, where we do a forbidden door type of thing, SC is the definitive factor on everything.
So to put it on to anyone that doesn't know about SCW and IWF and eFed, to make it as a wrestling term, you could say that you yourself is sort of like the guiding hand, and she's the Triple H to an extent.
I try. I think I've garnered that role a lot later in my career. I think in the past, a lot of people have viewed me more as Drake than Lazy, and I've been trying to make. I think I put this point up as a question in the future, but I can answer it now. How much of Drake is Lazy? And for a very long time, Drake was Drake. Drake was the bad guy, the villain, the savior of all wrestling, the guy who was coming in and he was going to change the way wrestling was meant to be done. He was going to be the guy who, if he saw that you were suffering and that you need changing, he was going to help you. But he was a flawed man. Behind the scenes, he was an alcoholic. He had all these other issues. And slowly over time, and now current day, what Drake has more become is meant to be a mentor, to be a helper, to take all of his shitty past experiences and the shitty things that he's done and try to direct people into doing better than he did. You could say that, yeah, I guess it's kind of like Triple H's whole thing, because you had the Triple H reign of terror and everything like that, and back in the day he was like quote unquote scumbag type of deal, doing everything he could to be at the top. And yeah, that was Drake, the 100%. And now it's more of like he's trying to see the best in wrestlers, trying to see the best in talent, trying to help bolster the roster as a whole and bolster the company as a whole. I could see that.
Yeah, there is some things that go into it that's quite interesting in how the comparisons are made. So this one's more just because it's come off, as you were saying, that if you could sum up how the character of Ryan Shea's come across in the FCW, IWF sort of combined, how would you say they are so far, and what sort of wrestlers would you compare them to yourself?
Okay. I see we're taking Jacob's question here and playing off of it from character activities. Ryan, in my opinion, has played many hats. The person I constantly see the actual call and character as, like, every single time, like Darby Allin. That's who I see on the screen. It might be the face paint that you have and everything like that, but that's the first person that came to mind. But you, as like a promoter, the way you play your character and everything like that, I would have to say I would see you more as a hold on. Give me 2 seconds here. Let me think, because
Not as easy to pinpoint, is it?
No, it's not. You know what? It's never a simple question, because I think that everyone brings their own unique portrayal to their characters and everything like that, and it's, unless you're being a carbon copy of someone else, it's hard to pinpoint one single wrestler that the character is like. But I like Darby Allin. I see you as maybe a like Jeff Hardy type fan favorite character who runs like comes into the ring and everyone's rooting for. Personality wise, you've always seemed like a Finn Balor-esque personality where you're not completely like you're not super intense as a person, but when you need to be, you can show that ferocity that a lot of people don't necessarily have. And you can be and when you do RP, your character seems very laid back, relaxed. But obviously, as I said, when he needs to be, he can be ferocious and be like, I'm gonna fight you.
Yeah, I could definitely see those.
IWF is a little bit different because I think in general your characters are not congruent in that way. From what I've seen and what I've read in IWF, your character seems a little bit more intense, a little bit more professional, I would say.
Yeah,
but I also think that probably plays into a role that you're a GM there.
Yeah.
Is that a good answer?
Yeah. I was just about to say it definitely makes sense to that, because the way I imagined this, to peel back the curtain on it, but you might have already imagined this yourself as well, is that the idea of it is that things in SCW are still going on. This is just my take on it. Things are still going on, but Ryan and Kane have sort of got their own thing going on as well. And Ryan feels like it's a lot of pressure on his shoulders to keep the quote-unquote chaos from not going absolutely amok. So even though people don't often go to him because they see it more as Kane's for one reason or another, he tries to stay as professional as possible, which is literally what you said.
Yeah. But also we know background stuff too. But yeah, spoilers.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. So I don't know why he asked this question, and you already sort of like wound up a little bit about it. But we had the question from Kane that to me made no sense, but it was quite funny. Where he said, "What fingers am I holding up on my hand?"
He asked me how many fingers, and I said 4. And then he asked on which hand. So I'm gonna answer that right now. It's on your left hand. Bet, Kane. I want to hear you tell me that it was on your left hand. Okay, good. There we go.
So here's another jokey question that you probably saw as well, and I'm sure there's more to it than what I'm reading into it. But Bennett, for some reason, said, "What do you? How often do you think of the Roman Empire?"
It's a great question. I think of the Roman Empire every single day. How glorious and wonderful that empire was, and what they built. It will never be replicated.
So, I never really got it started in SCW, but I sort of used some of it in IWF. What are your opinions on the whole supernatural, spooky, destructive nature of sort of gimmicks like that?
Okay, so you're getting into a certain realm that I tend to be very critical of. When it comes to supernatural, I feel like it's a one-person type of deal where one person can pull it off, one person can play that character, and otherwise other characters that revolve around him can have some of that effect, that rub off, but it's one of the few times where less means more. In SCW, we have Matt Black, and that's it. That's really when at the end of the day, he is the iconic, out of this realm character. Maya is the same way, but Maya is obviously not a on-screen character anymore. And they both fall into different types of realms, while Matt Black is more of a demonic, not even demonic, spiritual entity, being a wraith, I believe.
That sounds about right. I'm sure he'll correct us if we're wrong, but
he will 100% correct me. He's a zombie, as Maya likes to say. But in my honest opinion, the less supernatural you have, the more impactful it makes that one person. Obviously, you can have multiple. Sometimes it's nice to have like two that can counterbalance off of each other. But in the grand scheme of things, what makes it special is its exclusiveness, its uniqueness. There's one of a kind. There's only one. It's like Undertaker was that person for so long, and obviously there was Kane that acted as the counterbalance, and that worked. You had Undertaker and Kane. Boogeyman never left the ground, or didn't go to the same heights as Undertaker did. And then you had like Bray come in, and Bray should have been the spiritual successor to Undertaker in general. And we had that with the Fiend, we had that with the Wyatt family and everything like that. But during that time, it was only the Wyatt family. Undertaker at that point was like a long gone conclusion, only coming back at WrestleMania. And now we have the Wyatt 6, I believe that are coming in. But what makes it unique is that it's one group, or it's one person, and that's it. The rest of the whole community is grounded in the realm of reality.
I suppose to sort of connect to that with what the question we've already been answering is, what's your opinion on how these characters can be booked? Because the issue that a lot of people, to connect with the whole White Six situation, is that some people aren't sure how well that all connects with the actual grounded wrestlers. But there's not been a single match yet, so I feel like people don't want to give it the time.
In my opinion, when it comes to those types of characters, so this is the hard part. I think that they should be really something that only comes up once in a while. So say maybe, so they're like for WWE, there's four pay-per-views that are like the pay-per-views. There's WrestleMania, there's SummerSlam, there's the Royal Rumble, and then there's Survivor Series. Those four are kind of like the icons. They have never changed, they will never change, and they will always be there. And those are the times that I feel like those characters should be used. It's kind of hard because I understand that certain people like to be able to play those characters more often. And I think in an RP sense, you can do that. But when you use them every single week, and especially if that character is losing, that entire appeal of what that character is completely disappears.
Yeah, because then you've got the whole balance, haven't you, where it just can get thrown off, and then the booker, as in yourself, can then struggle to make that character look credible.
Yeah, there was a period of time where Matt was losing a lot of matches, and it just sucks because when Matt walks down to the ring, I want to see him dominate. I want to see him ruthlessly bringing down everyone else in that ring, with those select sparing people being able to actually compete against him. In my ideal concept, what would happen is most of the time it would be more of a Finn Balor demon situation, where most of the time you'd be wrestling as Finn Balor, right? And then every once in a while, when needed, the demon would come out. It's a spectacle.
Yeah.
It's got purpose, and you feel like it's got a big fight feel because you don't see it every single week.
Oh yeah, I completely agree, and obviously you'll know this. And it didn't really amount to much in SCW, but to an extent, that's what my sort of character's supposed to be if it comes back. It was very much connected to that idea. I didn't want it to be always there, but the foundation needed to be built so it was obvious to everybody else, if that made sense.
Yeah, no, and that's what I like. I like having a character who 99% of the time is normal, but that 1% of the time, it feels like you want to be jumping out of your seat when this person's walking down the ring. You want to be like, yeah, we get to see this person wrestle, or we know how this fight's gonna go. This guy's gonna dominate. He's gonna kill. He's gonna bring it down. But that's also very hard because you can't really fix every single match like that, can you?
No, definitely not. Not without a lot of tampering, which on screen, without messing around. It's not as easy as it sounds.
No, well, I mean, you can highlight real stuff, but the problem is it takes away from the fair competition of everything. And while sometimes we will do it, it's only when it really makes sense in story and the 2 people, 3 people, however many people who are involved really earned that story.
Yeah, okay. So here's the thing. I didn't ask or hint that I was going to ask this, but it's a bit of a grander question. What are some of your favorite moments in wrestling in general?
In real wrestling, like IRL or call wrestling?
Both. Like, if you had to separate, or if they're in any way connected, however you want to answer it.
Punk Money in the Bank 2013. I think it was 2013. But Punk Money in the Bank. We all know what I'm talking about when I say it. That was a defining moment in wrestling for me, and probably one of my favorite moments in wrestling ever. Watching Punk win that title and just running out of the arena, disappearing for a full month and a half. Any other big moments that really stick out to me was the Ric Flair retirement when Shawn Michaels is one of my first memories of wrestling is watching Shawn Michaels cry, telling Ric Flair, "I love you," as he super kicks him and pins him for his final match. That is the definition of wrestling for me. That is such a key aspect of storytelling that it's what got me to love wrestling. Yeah. When it comes to Caw, there isn't any one thing I can particularly point out that has made me feel that way. My entire storyline with Blaze a long time ago called Dynasty was great. I think that was a fantastic story that we told. In SCW, up until the end of it, the story that we were telling with me and Eric was phenomenal. Unfortunately, it never played out. We never had the big comeuppance and ending of that story, but I'm trying to think if there's any other big pivotal key moments that really got me into wrestling, specifically in CAW. Not off the top of my head. No, if something else comes up, I will mention it. But those really are what were my two favorite moments from both IRL and CAW wrestling.
So I have a few of my own to sort of like bounce off there. So ironically, two of them that thought of immediately sort of like mirror each other in some ways because of how differently they express the culture of it. But one of my favorite matches from one of my favorite pay-per-views, a lot of people like this pay-per-view, especially if they're old school, but it's Stone Cold vs. The Rock at WrestleMania 17.
Yep, that's a fair one.
It's just how all the different beats happened, how like violent it was for how basic it was, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because like you said it previously, less is more. And they didn't go like crazily over the top, but just for what they did and how they executed, especially with any of the other matches that were connected to that along the way that you saw in the promo, before the match, they really made it seem okay. You're either invested in this or you're not, and you're just going to watch it as a match. Like,
yeah,
like it's one of those where it just happens, or you really want to see what happens. Like, even though the two very much of the same thing, they will feel differently depending on how invested you are.
I get that. I can understand that.
And then another one that just comes to mind is I don't know how much you really watched TNA or if you watched it much before it is how it is now. But when AJ Styles turned face, when he was a bit of a heel for a while, where he was doing this whole like, oh, I'm sort of like my own sort of thing.
Yeah.
When they were trying to get him to join Aces and Eights.
I can assume that it was a good storyline. Unfortunately, I did not watch a lot of TNA or anything like that.
So like the idea was, I think they were trying to like take over like the whole idea of TNA. And they were getting a lot of people to join. And with how AJ Styles' appearance was, it made you think, oh, he's definitely joining then. But then he had his music play. He came to like halfway up the ramp. And then all of a sudden it switched back to his traditional TNA music. And from that point on, you knew, oh, he's face now. He's not just going to join them because it's the more easier thing to do. And then sort of it all kicked off from there. Which goes back to when you said about people just joining in for the sake of it. Like, just because it's the right thing to do doesn't mean it's the best thing to do for your character.
Real and true.
So, like, there is a lot of things that can go into wrestling. Same can go for eFedding. What, without giving too many things away, what do you find the most difficult about wrestling and eFedding?
Cooperation. People who are willing to take the L for the grand, for the bigger picture of a story. Oftentimes in my career, there have been matches where I will say, hey, I want to take the L here because in story, I believe that is the best direction to go. I think one of the perfect examples that never came to fruition was when me and Eric were going to have our match. The plan had been to have Blaze dropped the title to me, and then I'd defend the title at the pay-per-view, and then have Eric beat me, kind of solidifying him in the top spot and everything like that. Never came to fruition, but another story could be the whole Scott versus Scott Zero versus Jensen storyline, where Jensen took the L in the beginning, and then Scott took the L in the end. And it made the story all the better because it was able to tell that, hey, this is Jensen overcoming, and this is Zero finally getting the recognition he deserved. But that is the hardest thing to preach to people, that sometimes taking the L so you can get the W in the end, or vice versa, is critical to making a story feel big.
Oh, definitely, because for the longest time, going back to my character, he would struggle to maintain any sort of win streak. And the thing is it's all well and good making a story around that, but that can be a bit repetitive. There needs to be more substance to it. There needs to be more direction than just, oh, I'm going to win one day.
Yes. The other biggest thing is people dealing with losses, even if they're not planned. Throughout my entire career, I have a much higher loss ratio than I do win ratio. Yet still, people look back on my career and say that it was great. It's not about your win-loss record at the end of the day. What really matters is the stories that you tell and how your character is portrayed. You could lose every single match, but if you walk out there and you show that confidence, and if you play your character to his strengths, they're not going to remember how many wins or losses you have. They're going to remember that this character made a story. This character did the thing that everyone wanted to see.
Yeah, it is a bit more, how to put it, it is a bit more than just what it seems.
A huge factor also is when you are the person who loses often, when you do get those wins, it means all the more.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Like you want to take as much of a loss as you do a win, but you need to put it out there how much that win meant to you. From when the context is there.
Yes.
So a few casual questions, not necessarily always related to wrestling. What are your favorite video games?
Elden Ring, which the DLC just came out at the start of this interview, and as soon as this interview finishes, I'm going to play. Besides Elden Ring, I love Madden, and college football comes out next month, and I'm super hyped for that.
So,
I also love Pokemon. I just had to put it out there. I play Pokemon like every day. I have over 800 shinies. It's insane, and it's a bad habit I need to stop.
I'm going to say, comparatively to myself, I don't have that many shinies, but whenever a friend of mine, I mention, oh, I got this recently, he goes, I've never seen a single shiny. And it always seems easier to get shinies now to what they used to be. I was like, yeah, it does.
It's definitely easier. That doesn't make them any less cool.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Now, you mentioned Elden Ring. Would you say that's one of those sort of games that's difficult to get into, depending on what type of person you are?
I think if you have a low tolerance for losing, you're never going to be good at Elden Ring. I think Elden Ring is the Souls series in general, all like the Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Demon Souls, all those games are meant to be challenging, meant to be difficult, and give you a satisfaction that you wouldn't feel from any other game because of its difficulty. And then when you start to get good at it and you can play really well, the feeling of being able to walk into a boss that gave you the hardest time when you first started playing and literally just no sweat killing that boss, the feeling is just a new level of elation you will never feel in anything else.
I was going to say, I've had a similar feeling myself in some video games, especially when, I know it could be very tedious to some people, but when, like, say, for example, PlayStation, Xbox, you get all the trophies or all the achievements, and then you see how, just how rare that is for somebody to get, can feel that more like relaxing, and like you just like so excited that you've managed to achieve that, because like you're like, oh, I put the effort in and now I've got the reward.
Yeah, exactly. And like the reward after you put in that effort is always just like a cathartic feeling.
Oh, definitely, because going back to finding shinies, it's that serotonin of, oh, I found another one. Also going to that, have you managed to find all of them yet?
Oh, every shiny?
Yeah.
No,
like everyone that you can obtain.
No, not at all. I have at this moment in time, I probably have, I'd say 70% of the decks complete. Shiny decks complete.
Yeah.
I'm missing a lot of legends. Certain cards are impossible to hunt. You can only get them through events. And the thing about me is I only want Pokemon that have my unique trainer ID. I don't want anyone else's shiny. I don't care about your shiny. I want to find it, and I want it to be mine.
I would say the only time where it's okay is if it's not a shiny and you just want it in the deck so you can say you've got it.
Oh yeah, well
so
that's a whole different.
Get the shiny. Yeah.
That's a whole different story. That at that point, I'm just like, okay, I need this for the deck so I can get the shiny charm.
Yeah. It's like, it's not until I think it was Sword and Shield where I actually thought, you know what, maybe I'll try and get the full decks, because then you have the experience of, oh, I've actually seen or caught every Pokemon that I can do in that particular dex.
I have a full dex on the of the normal Pokemon in my Pokemon bank, except for I think 7 Pokemon, which is Victini, Keldeo, Volcanion, Hoopa. Who else? Magerna or something like that.
Yeah.
And one more that I can't remember off the top of my head. But it's all like exclusive mythics and stuff like that I don't have.
Yeah. What are your opinion on the mythics and legendaries? Do you feel like they're fair enough for what they are, or do you think maybe it needs to be changed, even though it probably won't be changed at this point?
Repeat that question. Hold on.
So legendaries and mythics, do you think the how they're shown in games, especially recently, do you think they fit the purpose?
That's a good question. Look, I mean, the purpose, no. But do I like being able to try and shiny hunt them now? Yeah, I'm fine with that. Mythics are more annoying. I feel like mythics should be available more often than they actually are, and they should be obtainable in game, not through a freaking code that you have to get at GameStop on these 3 days during this 1 month. Otherwise, you never get it. Like when what was Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl came out, they gave us the Shaman ticket, the Arceus ticket, and the Darkrai ticket, so you could hunt all of them via mystery gift, which is great because I don't have to go to my local GameStop to get a card, and you actually get to hunt them, try and catch them. I got my shiny Arceus that way. I'm shiny hunting Shaman right now. But I think mythics need to be more readily available through, even if it's a small bit of effort, to capture and hunt them rather than just get them as a code.
I much appreciate when they are, not always, but if they are part of the post game, then it's a reward for continuing to play the game.
I do enjoy post game, what was it? Alpha Ruby or Alpha Sapphire and Omega Ruby, I believe.
Yeah.
Where you get Deoxys at the end of the game when you go to space with Rayquaza and you can shiny hunt that Deoxys. That's like a great way to handle mythics.
Oh, definitely. I like when I played that for the first time, I was like quite surprised that not only are you getting a Mega that doesn't need a Mega Stone, but you're also going against Deoxys.
Yes, exactly. Really, really, those are great games, and I'm glad that Megas are coming back for the new Legends game.
So this could connect to. I'll wait till you answer. Go on. You sound quite excited about this. I've got to hear this.
No. I'm amazed that we got onto a giant conversation about Pokemon. It's it's the love of my life. I love Pokemon. I will love Pokemon until I die. So you brought up a topic that is kind of like my my crack cocaine drug here. It's addicting.
I'm quite the same when it comes to Pokemon. I like to get this balance where, because I'm trying to trade up all my Pokemon from all my games before they eventually get rid of Pokemon Bank, if they do. I keep hearing that but they haven't yet. So it's just like, how do you pick your favorites? What Pokemon do you not care about? It's all that process of, some people pick out their team and that's all that they use the whole way through.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a franchise that I think, even though I sometimes stray from, it's literally the only reason I still own a Switch. I don't think I play on any other game for the most part.
I have a few other games, but I mean, my main source of entertainment come from Pokemon, Madden, and soon to be college football, and Elden Ring. Or any Souls game in general.
So here's one that I don't think I've ever asked you before in any interaction, but do you watch many films? And if you do, what are your favorites?
My number one film of all time is A Silent Voice. It is a animated film from Japan that is just a very touching story about a bully and a deaf girl and what their lives were after they grew up. Non-animated film. Hold on, I have a film box, so I can actually look it up. What I rated the top, or not film box, whatever the freaking Facebook, but for movies is. Hold on. Letterboxd. There you go. I can't always remember my favorite movies because there's so many things that I've actually watched. But hold on. Profile. Cancel. Profile. Click on it, please. Phone. Act pretty fast here. Sorry, this is very slow here. Do it in order of highest. Done. A Silent Voice, and then La La Land. Oh, I love La La Land. Forgot about that.
I've never watched it myself.
Yeah, in my 4.5 category here, I got La La Land, Joker, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Avengers Infinity War, Baby Driver, and Godzilla -1. I really think you can tell what type of person I am just by those top films.
Well, I've not made a list like that, but I can, just from looking at my pile of games, some of which I need to maybe decide if I'm getting rid of. But like, I can see Transformers, the original animated film. I was quite a big fan of that.
Nice.
Even though there's a lot of criticism on it, the animated films of Digimon, the shorts that they put into a film.
The
I
Tree
think
series
it's more
and stuff.
Yes, but I mean like the original movie. In some places they put like a weird Angela Anaconda short in front of it.
I love the Digimon movies, especially
the
original one that was just a hodgepodge of different Digimon
that
films
one,
put together. Yeah.
Like,
the whole first
I like
half
how
doesn't make sense with the second half.
Yeah, I like how they tried to make it into a whole story, but even though they aren't actually related films whatsoever, they were just like their own shorts or whatever it was.
Yeah. Oh yeah, those good choice there. Good choice there.
You might have seen that I've been playing it on the channel. I went to go and see the FNAF movie, and I was quite surprised at how detailed it was, especially because they got the chap that plays Shaggy and who was in Scream. Is it what? I can't remember his name now. Was it? I can't remember his name off the cuff. I don't know if you know it, but it was so
Josh
good in
Hutcherson?
that. No, but he's in that film. He's in that. The guy that plays Shag in the live action films. Scooby-Doo.
Frick. God, where's Jensen when you need him? Frick. Is it like Matthew something?
I think it might be something like that.
Scooby-Doo movie. Hold on. It's not gonna kill me if I don't figure this out.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Got some authenticity in this podcast.
Matthew Lillard. Yeah.
Yes, that's it.
I love him. He's so good. But I never.
Yeah. It's such a strange movie, the FNAF movie, but it works so well with the characters they've got in it.
Yes, I think you know what, it didn't do as well as I wanted to do because I was looking for an actual like horror film. It didn't really feel like a horror; it felt like a thriller. But
yeah,
after like watching it twice, I did enjoy it. So,
and then I don't know if you saw this scene, but Matthew Lillard did the whole wiping the knife thing that I think was in Scream.
He did what scene?
He did this scene as the character he played, Springtrap, or Yellow. I can't remember what they call it in the film, where he like sort of wipes the knife.
Yep. Oh yeah, he did really well. He took on that role in general just so. What's the best way to put it? Like he really felt like Afton.
Yeah.
I can't say
like it
much.
Worked so well for what it was.
I can't say much else on other characters, but he played Afton like phenomenally.
It's weird because at least from what I can remember, I don't think he was actually in the movie as much as it seemed like he was.
Yeah, he wasn't. I mean, it was really short amount of time considering how long the movie was.
So, is there anything that you want to ask me, sort of like as a reverse towards the end of
a reverse
might be the
interview?
end of? Yeah.
Okay. I can give you a question. When you first got to SCW, what was your impression of Drake?
I felt like he was the type of character in which it's quite demanding in presence, in the fact that he's done what he has done. And especially if I put myself in the character Ryan Shade, he is the type of character that Ryan should have been more looking towards as a inspiration than he was Blaze. But he was so focused on to the big plays that he remembered watching before coming into, they didn't realize just how hard hitting Drake is, not only physically but as an actual character himself, if that makes sense.
It makes sense. I get that. I get that. I tend to be very under the radar until I cut my promos. Because Drake doesn't win matches when he goes out there and wrestles. But the stories that I tell, I like to think I do a very, very good job in making Drake seem like a larger than life character.
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially when I'm seeing the way people interact with him and always look to him for advice. There was a time where, especially when he was using the cane, that it gave me a elder version of the Penguin in such a way where when he's there, he demands attention, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I like that. That's a pretty good comparison.
It's like, he's there, you need to pay attention, and you will get something back from that interaction, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's how I like to make sure anyone who RPs with me, I like to make sure that they get something out of the interaction. I want them to walk away better than they were when they walked into the conversation.
Oh, for sure. Like, you want everyone to have gained something. It's sort of like a learning experience, and it's sort of like giving back to the newcomers and just everyone in general, isn't it?
Yeah, I've been doing this for a very long time at this point, and I have no aspirations for any type of gold or glory. I still have stories I want to tell with certain people. Those stories will come with time. Currently, we're in the middle of one, and Drake as a character is at this point meant for the mentor role, or as a way of telling a broader story outside of the ring.
Yeah.
I've got a question for you. If you could challenge anyone on the SCW roster, current or former, who would they be and what type of match?
That's an interesting question. I mean, it sounds like an easy answer, but I feel like Ryan's past that point where, even though he always wanted a match with Jameson, I feel like he's had that match. He won the title from Jameson. So I feel like I'm not going to give too much away in terms of that, but I feel like that's one thing that he's sort of overcome. But there is like a lot of people that I feel like there's more to explore with, especially sooner rather than later. But I feel like I'm stuck between, eventually, if Drake becomes more and more active, which, there is every chance that he might. We just have to see how the story plays out. I'm saying that because I don't want to give anything away. But I feel like there's a part of Ryan that wants to play into the idea of definitely put in a stance on having a good match with Drake, but then he also still wants to have a match with Blaze because Blaze has always had other things to do. But I think there's a part of Ryan that still wants to just have a match. There isn't a concrete reason, but I feel like because he was always one of those wrestlers that he enjoyed watching on the show, that he wants to be able to step between the ropes and actually just go head to head with him.
That's fair. I mean, I think there's a lot of people who want to fight Blaze. I think that's Blaze is so he is probably one of the most iconic talent in SCW, especially for how long he's been doing this and how many companies he's been in and how many stories he's put out there. I don't think it's any surprise that me and Blaze are extremely close friends. And Drake and him are our best friends.
Yeah.
And as a character and as a person, Blaze is probably one of the most decorated, talented, and overall iconic people in CAW today.
It's funny that you keep using that word, which is quite amusing.
I know. I think a big thing for me is the CAW community outside of our little bubble can tend to be very toxic. I don't know how long have you been doing this for, like CAW itself in eFed.
Okay, so simply as eFed, it's literally as I joined SCW, which is at least over a year now. I don't know specifically, but
you're very lucky because we stopped doing Twitter, and unfortunately, there is a very toxic part of CAW that tends to seep over into competition, and people tend to dislike each other and tend to get in each other's way. For a very long time, when I was working with another company, I tried to preach a singular CAW community where people actually got along and worked together and tried to better CAW in general. But I realized very quickly, well, not very quickly, it took me a while, but I realized that there's just some level of toxicity that can never be pushed through when it comes to CAW, and it really sucks. I'm glad that you haven't been exposed to it. There's a lot of people on the roster who are newer who haven't been exposed to it because they don't tend to veer in certain circles. But I envy those who have not had to deal with the darker sides of CAW, like Blaze and I have.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I'm assuming you yourself and Blaze have, from what you've said so far. It's not really eFed whatsoever what I've dealt with, but there's been similar issues. Like, this is in terms of what they, at the time, in the circles I was in, would call a league, which is quote-unquote the same as being in a clan. So they would have, like, music and stuff. But it wouldn't be eFed in as such. It would be more, you're playing the matches online. And the result of the match would play into if you'd have a title match and stuff like that. And they had, like, music on a website and all different sorts of things. You would, you'd talk and say if you yourself you feel like you've done well. And there definitely would still be favorites, as in the person who ran it would have like their favorites, which I think is a bit unfair to have, regardless of how serious the thing is.
Yeah.
And as the wrestling games have gone on, the Dury one specifically, I feel like the two different things. I feel like eFedding is easier to do in terms of you don't have to rely on the online service working.
Yeah.
Whereas when I was doing that, I don't know if it's quite easy to guess from some of the stuff I might have said in the eFed, but a lot of the time I was playing as Shawn Michaels, and some moves are easy to do when you haven't got lag. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, is there anything else you'd like to talk about? I think I've gone through most of the questions already.
Not that I can think of. I mean, I could go on for days talking, but we've already gone an hour and 20 minutes. So I think at this point, this is where I say, hey, any of you who are still listening, who are still here, you get a little gift. Hey, Ryan. After recent events, I just want to ask you, as Drake, look, this whole Rajin Nagas thing sounded really fun, but with what Jesse did to me, and the fact that my job is currently on the line, I was wondering, do you mind if I just wrestle as me?
In terms of how things have proceeded, of course, whatever you yourself feel most comfortable with.
Perfect. So this is the reveal that Drake is going to be coming to IWF. For anyone who hears it, whoever gets to this exact point at 12134, you get to know this.
See, these are the things you get.
Also, to anyone who wants to work a story with me, I'm free to do anything. Just hit me up in the DMs. And that goes to you, Ryan, too.
Oh, for sure. Like, in terms of the media side of things, we will put some links and a bit of information in the description. Anything that you want to plug at the end, feel free to.
I do. I got
one last question as a little bonus as well, which is just to make things a little casual. When you think of chilled out, what sort of foods make you feel relaxed and put you in a good mood?
Hamburger. I love hamburgers. When I go to any restaurant, I always order a hamburger. Because if you can't get a hamburger right, you're not worth my time. That is my comfort food. If we're talking about just like snacks and stuff like that, I like wings. I'm a carnivore. I'm a full-on meat eater. I devour too much protein for my body.
Oh yeah, like just prior to us starting, I just finished off a pizza that I had earlier on.
Oh yeah. What about you? What's your snack? What's your food of choice?
So I've got like a few answers to this in sort of like order. So like breakfast wise, just because it's so childhood related, I'm pretty sure you have them in America, but like Cocoa Pops, one of my favorite cereal, made because of nostalgia. In terms of a straight up meal that I just love to go to, especially if I've made it myself or if my wife's made it, I do love a good curry, regardless of how spicy it is.
That's good. Love curry.
And I do really love a good pepperoni pizza, like especially when it's made just right. It's hot enough, and you can just think, "Oh, if I haven't finished it, it's easy enough to reheat."
True. Facts. Okay. Yeah, that's it. Anything else? Any other questions?
Nothing particularly coming to mind. And like you mentioned, just on the pre-record, we'll keep on thinking and keep on going till it organically ends. And I think we're about there.
Cool. Then I'll do my 2 plugs. I'll do my 3 plugs here. 1, SEW. I'm the booker with SE and Blaze, and we have some really big stories coming up. Curtain Call is literally one pay-per-view away. So yeah, Ryan here. Ryan has story coming. He doesn't know he has story coming, but he has story coming. Secondly, I have a channel called Wolf Packs. Fuck the YouTube. The YouTube sucks. It's on my Insta, and I will give it to Ryan. If Ryan could put it in the description, I would greatly appreciate. It is
definitely
literally just opening packs of Magic and Pokemon and soon to be Lorcana cards. And lastly, come watch IWF, because that's going to be the only place where you can see Drake wrestle anytime soon.
I mean, yeah, one of the main places where Ryan made his start is SCW, but ironically, the place you'll see Drake make his return will be IWF, as you just revealed.
Yes, and it should be a fun time, because where there's Drake, there are storms and there are snakes. Let me be your savior, IWF, because I am here. It was very fun.
Yeah, that was literally on my mind. I was like, it's been quite interesting, and you've hit the record for the longest stream for the podcast episode as well.
I can talk for days. It's one of the benefits of... It's why I open Top Shelf, because I like interviewing. I like talking to people. I rarely get to be interviewed myself, so it's very nice to actually talk. And trust me, if we asked everything that I wanted to ever talk about, we'd be sitting here for 3-4 hours. But I always like to have more story to tell. So in the future, or after a little bit of time, maybe I'll come back and I'll do an entire interview just as Drake himself.
It sounds good. I was about to say, you never know. If the stars align, maybe me and Kane will be on the same episode to interview you at the same time. But obviously,
Yes.
not everything always works out that way.
All right. Yeah, and that's it. That's all I got. That is Lazy, aka Drake Xavier, aka Sal Destito, aka Maya Grace, aka this guy named Victor that you guys don't know, aka Schmidt Goldstein, aka
So, yeah,
Cruz Morrissey, aka I could go on and on. I've played every character.
So this is where we'll leave it. There may be a sequel, if you want to call it that, in the future. So look out for that, guys. We'll put some useful information related to Lazy, aka Drake, in the description and in the comments as well, if needed. Some graphics along the way you might see. They'll maybe designed by myself, or depending on if he's free or if I get around to actually asking him, Drake himself might help with some tips and stuff along the way for that. So you'll probably see some of his graphics in there potentially along the way. You never know.
Hells to the yeah.
Well, I think that's where we're going to wrap it up. So I've been Brian Iconic Shadows, Ryan Shade in the eFed world. And as he's just said, this is
Drake.
This is
Xavier.
Yeah.
Also, aka Lazy. And much love to you all. Get home safe tonight. And keep it real.
Thank you, IWF. Peace out. Have a good day. Have a good night. Whatever time it is for you, have a good one.
Peace.